All right, you're ready to rock.
Okay, good evening. This is May 11th, 2020, regularly scheduled school committee meeting. Call the meeting to order, 6 o'clock. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Section 30A, Section 20. Per the governor's order, the public will not be allowed to physically access the school committee meeting. Members of the public can access the meeting via the live stream. In attendance tonight is our full committee. We have Antonella Rochilla, Bill Fonseca, Rich Ficero, Sarah Trulio, Sarah, you're on mute, and myself, Greg Thompson. Superintendent Gordon Smith, Assistant Superintendent Pamela Blair. Who else is here? Heather Brown, our Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. Sophia Lacavucci, who is our student rep, and Kathy Saletti, our recording secretary, and Ryan Quimby, our IT director, who's managing the meeting. Did I get everybody? Okay. All right, we'll move on to our first order of business. We have some meeting minutes to approve.
So I make a motion to approve the regular session meeting minutes of April 13th, 2020.
Motion made
Second.
and seconded by Sarah. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. Next.
Move to approve the executive session meeting minutes of April 13th, 2020.
Motion has been made.
Second.
Second by Rich. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. Ryan, do you know what's going on with the other two Kathy Salettis?
I don't. I'm trying to figure that out right now.
They keep dinging in or ding donging.
Yeah, someone's. I don't know. I'm gonna just keep booting him. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Okay. 2.3 approval of minutes. A motion, please.
I make
Move to
a
approve
motion executive session meeting minutes of April 23rd, 2020.
Okay. Motion's been made by Rich. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bill. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. And one more, please.
Move to approve the executive session meeting minutes of April 27th, 2020.
Motion's been made by Bill.
Second.
Second by Antonella. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0 as well. Okay, moving right along. Does anybody have any committee and subcommittee communications for this evening?
No.
No? Gordon, Pam, and myself met with the capital planning group chaired by Mr. Quimby himself today. It was a productive meeting, just went over our projects, and they had further discussion after we left. So we'll wait to hear back from them after that. Okay. We have 4.1.1, update on the ELPS operations during the COVID-19 pandemic. Gordon.
Okay, so Heather and I are going to give you an update on all that we're doing. Most of the information in your packet is regarding to the expansion of our remote learning and then how we're capturing the time that the schools have been closed and the production and work that the students are doing with grades that we already have captured from the beginning of the school year through March 13th when we closed. Before going there though, one quick update off of the remote learning is with the help of our Director of Health, we put together a protocol for our custodians to begin to return this week to fuller shifts. and not operate as we had been operating since the week of March 16th, where we had one custodian in each building at the beginning of the day, doing a building check, doing some cleaning, and sort of preparing the building for the day. And then another custodian coming on at the end of the day to do a similar type routine as he or she closed the building out for that day. Now we're moving more into our preventative maintenance program and eventually into our comprehensive cleaning that we do in the summer. That's with, though, some modifications to how we work together. We are still practicing safe distancing. We have provided the custodians so far with masks that should last throughout this week. We've just received more masks through our emergency planning operations that we have now on Mondays and Thursdays. And I believe we picked them up at the fire department, but I believe they came through the Massachusetts Emergency Management group. So that started today. We'll continue to build on that as we go forward and start to see how the governor's sort of reopening plan that more or less kicks off next Monday allows us to go further with bringing staff in and so forth. Eventually we'll have staff coming back into their classrooms to get anything else they may need for the remainder of the school year. We did do that at the beginning of the closure, and we will be scheduling that again once we get into the week of May 18th. So I just wanted to keep all of you updated on that. Then the majority of the information that was in your packet is taking a look at, as we received expanded guidelines from the Commissioner of Education back on Friday, April 24th. And that was after the governor had earlier in the week delivered the message that schools would, or the buildings would remain closed through the end of this academic year for us, that is June 19th. So with that, the commissioner provided expanded remote learning guidelines. And we've been working throughout when the first guidelines came in late March, and then certainly with this expanded guidelines to make sure that we're aligning with those. And part of the recommendation is looking at the work being accomplished during this time of remote learning as being what at least the commissioner referred to as credit, no credit. And we were looking at how that would work at the various levels, because it works a little differently, especially given the way we have been doing report cards at the elementary, at the middle, and at the high school level. So in your packet, we began to break that down further for you. And it's in that document that says ELPS remote learning and grading. Does everybody have that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So starting with the high school, the remote learning now has moved into a situation where they are providing a schedule each week. They have a much more structured schedule as to when blocks meet during any given week. Parents and students, and jump in, Sophia, if I'm misrepresenting anything, know when assignments will be posted each week and when due dates for those assignments. They know all of that ahead of time as they post new assignments. I believe it's in the 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock time frame on any given day, and if possible, maybe post for the week on a given Monday. As we look at how we start to provide some reporting back to students and families, one of the things that we're doing both at the high school and the middle school is we're merging the grading term 3 and the grading term 4. In both cases, at the high school and the middle school, we have 4 regular grading terms. We were coming up on the end of the 3rd grading term, but we were not at the end, fully at the end, when we closed on March 13th. So teachers did have work and certainly 2 quarters of grades if it was a year-long course, up to March 13th. And so what we're looking to do is continue now with this expanded learning, moving into new material, as we, some classes we've been doing already for a little bit of time, but if we haven't been doing that in other classes, moving from the original guidance of enriching curriculum already and curriculum standards that have already been taught, and starting to move forward a little bit, especially at the high school level with new material. And the commissioner gave us guidance in terms of prioritized standards that would be in a given subject area. And so our buildings and our departments are breaking that down and looking to make sure that we're hitting those. It'll also be very helpful as we look to next year, because there will be many changes as we start the new school year. We're not entirely sure what all those changes are, but one of the things that we do know is that there will be a lot of review. We will need to know exactly what the prioritized standards were for the previous grade level or the previous course that feeds into another course at the high school, and make sure that as we begin school next year, we're providing a lot of review and structure to help students transition back into somewhat regular operations of teaching and learning and what school operations used to look like. For the high school, what they're going to look to do is they are going to take the work accomplished in this time of closure, and if the work is completed, that is being brought in as 30% of the grade for this now expanded term, term 3 and 4. And the work done prior to the closure in term 3 would still represent 70%, if I'm understanding their breakdown correctly. One of the things that they've also talked about at the high school is that certainly we're giving credit where students are turning in the work, but we had made it to March 13th, and so teachers do have a pretty good idea of their students' capabilities. And so if Gordon Smith is not working up to what was considered his capability, we do build in time to provide feedback on that and kick that assignment back, not to give it credit until some of the revisions that hopefully were outlined in the feedback have been implemented. So that's something that's being done at the high school. With the middle school, they're getting at it a little bit differently in terms of providing each week a participation and effort grade in a numeric grade, going down 4, 3, 2, 1 in terms of what they're seeing from the students in terms of effort and output. And then they would utilize that information along with the grades that they had through March 13th to ultimately at the end of the year provide feedback to families and students in terms of a pass-fail. But also one of the things that we do see in this whole closure as somewhat of a silver lining is that we're doing a much better job, because we have to focus on the feedback we're providing during the learning process, not just the feedback we're providing at the end of, say, a project or a paper, but during the learning process. Because I think, as we all know, that's more of where the learning takes place. Often, and I'll use just my own experience as a reference or an example, if I was an English teacher and I taught both at the middle and the high school level, it's rare that if I put the grade on the front of the paper or project that students ever read past maybe the 1 or 2 comments that was on that first page. And so I found, and I think most of our teachers are finding, that you're getting more learning throughout the process of putting that paper or that project or that assignment together if we can provide targeted feedback during that time. And I think all of you have seen the different schedules that we're providing. We're trying to get at that through what we are calling office hours, and where smaller groups can connect with a given teacher and go through a particular assignment or get extra help on something else that they are seeking extra help on. Any questions? That was a lot of information. That's dealing with the high school and the middle school. Questions or thoughts on that?
Sophia, how's the workload been?
It's been good for me. It's been like really easy to keep myself organized with the schedule. And then all my teachers are sending things out ahead of time, so I know what I have to get done and I have more than enough time to do it. And then the office hours, like my teachers will post like what time they're at and things like that. So it's been really good. Yeah.
Good.
So one of the things also that in staying with the commissioner's, I guess, implied recommendation is that we've always looked at this as we originally defined the work that we're doing during the closure as an opportunity to hopefully only benefit students. So that our hope is with the support that we're putting together, should students not be engaging or not doing assignments, through the support that we're providing through our counselors, through our teachers' office hours, that we can figure out why they may not be engaging, get them to engage, and that this work now can benefit and maybe boost if they were struggling when we were in regular operations up to March 13th. And that seems to certainly be within the commissioner's guidance and recommendations as you read through the expanded guidelines. The elementary level.
Mr. Smith, a quick question.
Yeah, right, sure.
Frank Page, the principal references June 19th. Is that the last day of school, June 19th?
June 19th is the last day of school for all grade levels. I think seniors will be dealing with exams and different things prior to that, as they would in a regular school year, which certainly with COVID-19 operations, we're not in a regular school year anymore. But to the best of our ability, we're going to try to make the best and certainly celebrate our seniors. So they may be looking at an earlier exit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mrs. Brown has been working with our elementary schools to try to coordinate something that can be somewhat uniform for all three schools. And as you know, that our elementary schools pre-K to 5 use a standards-based report card. And so what we're looking at, certainly we have grades that were in there. That's usually a 3 grading term process for all 3 schools. And we did have grades pretty much up until the close of that second grading term. So we do plan on providing that information that would have been, say, the second term report card. But we are looking to provide something also that would capture the work that we're doing now with our elementary students. And Mrs. Brown can give you some more detail on that with some of the work that she's done with the administration for all 3 schools.
Thanks. So as Mr. Smith said, there are 3 trimesters of the elementary schools, and the second semester grades will be shared. And then the third trimester report card will look a little different than it has in the past. It's going to be mostly narrative, so that teachers can really share a variety of things about the progress that they've seen with students in terms of not only their habits of work and engagement, but their progress on some of our personalized learning tools that we have that are aligned to standards. So that will be part of the report out with the narrative that students will, the parents will see progress on, for example, iReady or ST Math or Lexia or a combination of. And we're also working on getting that information out before the end of the year too, so that parents can have access to that progress as the students are learning, as Mr. Smith was saying.
So one of the things that we want to provide our parents, as Mrs. Brown is saying, is these reports that we had. This is our first full year with iReady, so we have not utilized those reports before, but I think it will be important not only to provide that to the parents, but it also will give the teachers a pretty good idea of what they might be capturing in their narratives as they put those together for the end of the year reporting. So they'll have that as well as things that they're observing, not only in the live time with students, but also things they're observing in work that's being produced by our elementary students.
In the past two diagnostics on the iReady first grade through 8th grade, we did send home the results for math and ELA to all families. But we won't be doing a diagnostic most likely at the end of the year for a variety of reasons. iReady doesn't recommend doing it at home. We don't know how valid the information would be. And so the iReady reports will be based on the progress that we see with the online instruction, which the majority of our students are engaging with, 3 to 8, and then at some level in first grade and second grade, because they didn't actually use iReady before the pandemic for online instruction because they had ST Math and Lexia, but some teachers are supplementing with iReady as well.
So that's where we've gotten to in terms of how we're going to merge the work we're doing during this time of closure with the work we had done previously. And we have already begun to start to communicate this not only with our students, as Sophia had said, but starting to communicate this by building with their parents and families. And so we wanted to make sure that you had all this information outlined. If there are questions before we move on, I wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to ask them. No? Okay.
Wait, I have a question.
Okay.
How many times a week do the students meet with their teachers?
So on the high school, I believe you have class scheduled 2 times a week plus office hours. At the middle school, they have at least 2 sets of office hours that are live per week, plus posted assignments, which could be a video. It could be a written posted assignment through Google Classroom. And then, or it could be, we're seeing this as well, and we're trying to expand our capacity across the district for doing actually a full live lesson, be it in Google Meets or Hangout or through Zoom. And so that's some of the work we're doing. I think that definitely the high school staff jumped into that maybe a bit quicker. And we're seeing now with different support we're trying to provide, more of our teachers across grade levels are also doing that. But the office hours idea has really hit home. And so that seems to work pretty well. It's also a smaller group, so individual attention, more individualized attention can be provided.
So the office hours, the kids go there and they get personal assistance, individual assistance from their teacher on the assignment that the teacher gave?
Yeah, it can be, and then maybe Sophia wants to chime in
Yeah.
on some of that. I would say it's not always individual. It might be small group, but certainly it's around the work they're doing in assignments that have been already posted.
Yeah, so it's for the high school at least, we'll meet twice a week. And then with the classes that were originally double blocked, it's nice because you do have the opportunity to meet more for those classes that you had been used to meeting more for. So there's usually more material for those courses. And then also just one example of something that the office hours were used for is in one class of one of my AP classes, we had done a practice essay that we wrote. And then on Friday, I was able to meet individually with my teacher. And I think that each student was able to also meet individually with him. And we were able to go through the essay and get like one-on-one feedback that you would be able to do in class. So that it's really good.
I know too at the elementary schools with the new guidance and just understanding kids' developmental levels, we've been talking about the use of synchronous and asynchronous times. So for lessons, sometimes it's hard for a first grader maybe to pay attention for any length of time. So we're talking more about providing videos and things like that for lessons, and then using the synchronous time for more connection, morning meetings, and things like that. So those are the conversations that are happening now as we learn more about remote learning.
We're also excited just to introduce new vocabulary words like synchronous and asynchronous. Wasn't something that we put into letters before, but now we are.
That's true.
So along with the update in terms of our operation, one of the things that Mrs. Brown put together with the help of our principals is we sent out a family and caregiver survey. And I think all of you have had that. The survey, you got a certain amount of results, but the survey actually is still open. So we have updated those results and we'll kind of walk you through that. I think we emailed the latest PDF to Mr. Quimby. Was he planning on putting that up? Do you know, Mrs. Brown?
I did send it to him.
Mr. Quimby, would you be able to share your screen and put that PDF up?
Yeah, sorry about
It's not
that.
actually a PDF. It was just the Google Doc.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if that was for me, so I kind of ignored it, but give me a second.
And here's
The
the pen.
Family Survey 2020 updated?
Yes. In Mr. Quimby's defense, I did send him something earlier that I meant to send to myself, so. While he's getting that up, I'll just talk a little bit about why we sent out the survey and some of the responses that we got. So the responses, and you'll see, and actually with the updated, have been overwhelmingly positive. Our teachers are doing amazing things and really jumping into their risk zones and learning some of these platforms and really rolling with it and doing going over and above for our students. And just, I wanted to highlight some of the other things that are happening at some of the schools, or at all the schools, but some of these things are happening some, and others are happening at others. Just the recognitions that have been happening, PTOs donating to families, they're collecting monies and putting grocery gift certificates together. Pairs have been paired up with students who are engaging. Teams are actually working together to make sure students are engaging and to find out the barriers that might be in place that are preventing students from engaging. So we're really trying not to let anyone fall through the cracks. And IT has been amazing in terms of fixing computers that are not working and just making sure everyone has what they need, and figuring out how to use some of the applications that we use on home computers, because not every child in elementary school borrowed a school computer. And so it's just, I just wanted to highlight some of the really fun things that are happening, and just that it really does take a village. So in terms of this caregiver survey, we sent it out last Tuesday, and the information that you have was updated, I believe, on Friday the 7th. And so the information that I'm posting here was today at 4 p.m. And we wanted to basically find out from families and caregivers their general feedback about the instruction their students or their children are receiving, the feedback that they're receiving from teachers, how connected they feel like their children are with their teachers. And we also wanted to see if there are any other supports we could provide, because, as you know, these are really stressful times, and our families are really doing the best that they can as well, trying to juggle work and kids and often COVID-related stressors. So we wanted to see what supports we could put in place, and I can talk a little bit more about how we're going to do that. Mr. Quimby, are you able, you scroll up, or if I scroll up on my document, will it scroll up? No.
I'll tell you what we can do though. You can share it yourself.
Oh, perfect.
That's all.
Am I able to?
You should be able to now.
Okay. Oh no, everyone's gonna see my scary desktop. All right. So if you need me to make this a little bigger, I can do that. We had the most respondents from Meadowbrook, but we also got a good amount at all of the schools, even the high school and the middle school. And you can see the grade printout. That didn't change too much since the last survey. And so if you look at the amount of the work that folks feel the children are receiving, there's about 75% are saying it's just right, which is great. For those teachers, parents that don't feel like it's enough, we are offering a lot of enrichment activities, and those are only increasing. At Birchland, I know they started having streamed yoga classes, and I know there's a cartooning class at Mountain View, so there's a lot of extra things like that. And then in terms of folks who feel like there's too much, we're definitely looking for trends to see if there's any pockets where that might be happening. The amount of instruction, this is before the governor's, this is as we were digesting the governor's new guidance. And so the number at this point is 67% about who are feeling like it's just right. And like I said, the conversations around improving that, those kinds of direct instruction and how we're going to deliver that in the best way for students is happening. So these numbers will obviously get better. The amount of feedback that my children are receiving is 75%. And we have systems in place to share feedback and engagement. Like I said earlier, we'll be using some of the personalized learning reports to give more specific feedback to parents who really want to know about their children's progress and their engagement on those tools. And the amount of connection my children have with their teachers, about 71% said just right. And so that folks that are saying not enough, we're hoping that by increasing those times for online lessons or online connections, morning meetings, things like that will help with that as well. But all of this information, we're coding and really looking for trends so that to see if there's anything we can do systematically. And then I asked about different supports that families needed, and including, access to Wi-Fi, access to getting food. The families that said they needed that, I reached out to them already. Some folks wanted a counselor to call their home, so I've been reaching out to counselors of those parents and families. And then a lot of the other things is just about beyond kind of managing stress and getting kids to engage, just learning more about some of our online tools and how to utilize them. So I asked in terms of what they would like, how they would like that information. And a lot of folks said that they would like it on a website. And I do have a website. And so I'm just going to improve it and also make it a little easier to get to. And others would like online workshops or office hours. So I'm looking into how to provide that in a way that will support families. But we, like I said, overwhelmingly positive. When I coded the data, for some that just said things are good, positive, there was overwhelming the amount of comments and feedback that were positive. And so I just put some of the quotes here. This one, thank you so much for all of your hard work with putting together a curriculum that suits the needs of our kids during new remote learning that we were navigating. This person's a teacher, so that was great feedback to hear. And all the different schools also got individual shout outs as well. So just the fact that people took the time to write these long comments and share their appreciation just shows again how amazing everyone in the school community has been working together to do what's best for our kids. So.
Looking at those statistics, March 13th, we were in school, and March 16th on Monday, we were out of school. To have statistics that powerful, that positive, with being caught off guard, spontaneously thrown out of school, I think it just says so much about our staff effectiveness. Those statistics are truly amazing, given the circumstances.
And they jumped right in. We had that PD day that Wednesday, the 18th, and then we were in it. So whereas some districts, took a while to wait for guidance and get things into place, our teachers just jumped head in and did what they needed to do for our students.
It was really impressive. We had to turn somewhat quickly to create a virtual professional development day on Wednesday, March 18th. And Mrs. Brown did an exceptional job and also recruited some others who could help with those workshops to get people up and running. And Ryan and his department have been incredible all the way through. There's no way we could have been as successful as we have been, and we hope to continue to expand on that and build on that success without the IT department, and certainly without having implemented at the beginning of the year a one-to-one program. At that point, the take-home part of it obviously was 6 through 12, and then the access part of it was grades 2 through 12. But now, all the way through kindergarten, if families desire a Chromebook, we've been able to get them a Chromebook from the system. And so that truly was a base from which this success was built. So, thank you to everybody involved, and thank you for anybody who may be watching, our staff, that for being open-minded, because it truly was a whole new process. And thank you to our students, because they've been exceptional throughout. We've always felt that we have the best students, and I think now we're proving it. Right, Sophia?
Great leadership too, great leadership.
Thank you. Yeah, questions on any of that? We hope to take this information and start to digest it first with the leadership team, and then they've been working the last 2 weeks of aligning further to the expanded guidance from the commissioner, and now we can take some of this feedback here and bring it into our building and department meetings. And one of the things that we've talked about over the last week is how we continue to provide more support in terms of building capacity. Because I think if we can use this spring, the rest of May into June, to build our staff's capacity, then whatever September and October brings, hopefully we're in a better spot to again, do something quickly to support our students, should we need to do that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there a way to, you had the pie charts, and students or parents, they did put which school they're in, I think. Is there a way to determine in the pie chart, like what the percentages were for each school?
So the way I did the survey, I really was doing it for trends and hoping that folks could clarify in the comments. And that was just to make sure folks didn't feel like, I don't know, I didn't want anyone to feel like we were targeting a certain, So what I've done though is I can parse out information. I can't parse out those pie charts like I have before, because they do say, the schools that they're in and the grade level, and sometimes there's multiple. What I have done though, I went through 260 responses and coded them all in terms of what schools and what the parents wanted. And so we're going to be looking at those trends tomorrow. So
yeah, just to identify, like if one school needed more support than
exactly
a different one.
Yep, and to look for those trends. And around PD, a lot of the PD has been really informal and grassroots. Teachers teaching other teachers things that they find, coaches teaching folks in their building about different tools that they're learning about. But we are going to have some more formal, in the sense that it will be a little more organized, optional PDs for teachers too around some of these tools, so that they can get a little bit more in depth.
Is that happening soon, Heather?
Yep, I'm sending out the survey just to make sure I'm targeting exactly what people want, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Gordon, just a logistical question.
Sure.
Are students going to be allowed back in the buildings to clean out their lockers and such this year? Do you know?
So they are, yes. So one of the things that we wanted to do was get our custodians back into sort of a larger regular shift. And starting next week, the buildings will start to put together schedules as to when and how we do this in a safe and efficient manner. In some cases, they may start with staff and bring staff in first to their classrooms, and then we'll move on to bringing students in, I would imagine by hallway and homeroom and so forth, so that we can keep it to a set number at any given time.
Okay, great. Any other discussion on this topic?
Sounds good. All I hear is positive about how quickly we were able to react to what happened in mid-March and get things up and running. And that's, it's a positive that I'm hearing a lot about, and how well we handled it.
And if you get a chance to read all the feedback after the survey, it reiterates that same point, Bill. So a lot
Yes,
of
it
parents
does.
are in agreement with you on that.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you so much on that.
Thank you.
Let's move forward. We're going to go with an update on Lhs graduation.
Okay, so if you look in the shared folder, I didn't have this when the packet went out, but as a separate document in your shared folder, there should be a senior events outline and schedule. Is everybody able to pull that up on their computer? It's in the meeting agenda folder for 2019, 2020. And let me just double check here.
Gordon, you can also share it to the screen if you want.
Okay, I can, let me get back to, okay, you want me to, would everybody like me to share that and put it up on screen? Is that easier?
Yeah, that would be easier, I think.
Okay. So let's see. Okay, so if everybody can see, is that big enough for everybody to see?
Yeah, that looks good.
125. So basically, what we're hoping to do with the senior events, and Mr. Page and Mr. Wright put together a committee of senior parents, our senior student officers, and one other administrator, and they also invited me to participate. We had our first meeting on Friday, and we started to outline what we hope to do, and we also shared the graduation part of it with our Department of Health and with our fire chief, who are basically managing our emergency operations center as we go through COVID-19. And so we're looking at graduation as two possible phases. The first phase we would like to have happen somewhere around the weekend of June 13th and 14th. And this would be a live ceremony, but a structured and limited ceremony where students and families would be arriving to the high school parking lot. We would have it lined out and probably scheduled so that it would be a certain number of families at any given time. They would stay in their car. We would set up a stage of sorts. And so when the student in a specific car is called, that unit that comes out of the car, family unit, they are all able to come across the stage, pick up the diploma. We would have photography set up, and we would set up at least videotaping, if not live streaming. They would have that sort of walk across the stage moment in June, and there would obviously be a limited audience in cars during that time. And then we would run through, we're still working on the scheduling of all this, we would run through our senior class. We have 230 students approximately, so it is going to take some scheduling and setting up a time frame and figuring what that looks like. Is obviously at one point when we started to put this together, I think the comment was made, Sophia, you might remember this. Someone said, okay, well, if we do that and we're thinking 5 minutes per car, that's 19 hours. So we're certainly not going to put on an event that becomes sort of a marathon. So we will look to figure that piece out and hopefully have this structured and set within the next week or two. But we did get the support of our Director of Health that this is something we can do, and certainly do it in a safe and very positive way. Then, given the state guidance and hopefully more guidance that we will receive as we come into coming weeks, we were looking to have a more traditional ceremony. I think our students want to keep it outdoors and at the grounds of the high school. And so we were hoping to do that during the week of, or weekend of August 7th, 8th, or 9th. And obviously utilize whatever and implement any guidance and safety that we need to put in place. So that's a little bit more up in the air, pending what direction and guidelines we get from the state. So we do definitely want to hit, if we can, the ceremony that again would be live during June. Is another reason for keeping this piece, the live piece in June, is that we may lose students even before the week of August 7th, 8th, and 9th to various post-graduation activities. And so we wanted to have some recognition should they not be able to be recognized during the week of August 7th, 8th, and 9th. So that's right now what we're thinking in terms of graduation. I do know that we have a parent group that, in addition to the committee that Mr. Page and Mr. Wright put together, are sort of a graduation booster club, if you will. And so they're looking to also brainstorm ideas of how to recognize and carry out certain safe events for our seniors. And they had a separate meeting or an additional meeting on Saturday, I think via Zoom or some other virtual software that allowed them to meet safely. Questions before I move to other activities?
Yeah, I just want to add that, like, I also think that phase one is really important just in case, like, hopefully this isn't the case, but in case we can't have the phase two experience,
Right.
at least you still get the phase one experience and you still get to kind of, you know, wear your cap and gown and get your diploma. So I think that I like that we have both because there's something to look forward to. But if in worst case scenario you can't have that, you've gotten to get your diploma and things like that.
Thank you, Sophia. And Sophia is on the committee that's working on this. So I was complimenting her before we started the official meeting and thanking her because she spoke up in the meeting a number of times, which is very important. If we're not listening to our students, then we're even losing more ground than COVID-19 has forced us to lose. So I was glad that not only Sophia spoke up right here in our meeting, but also quite a few times in an incredibly productive way on Friday.
So board
sure.
will mail those to the students then, the cap and gowns, is that the plan? Those will be sent in the
So
mail?
we're going to be, there are more activities. I'm going to scroll down and we'll get to how we're going to do that.
Yep.
Just to give you an idea of what other districts, and I think I can even update this because we had an LPVC meeting this afternoon. So West Springfield is looking at doing something at the Big E parking lot. I think they have the capacity at that parking lot to possibly handle 4,000 cars. So they're going to do something similar, but probably would be able to incorporate more cars and family units, so to speak, at one time. Minnechaug right now was looking at just holding that August ceremony, potentially still at Symphony Hall where they do their graduation usually in June. As Sophia said, we're unsure of what guidelines and safeguards are going to be needed even in August. I think Longmeadow right now is working on, they're not on this sheet, but today I believe they reported that they were also looking at some type of outdoor ceremony and figuring out how they could have something live but keep the safe distance and allow families still to celebrate. So they're working on that. They were doing a combination, I think, of possibly their football stadium and the fields adjacent to it, but they don't have their plans finalized yet. But going to the question that Mr. Thompson asked, so we're also looking to schedule a cap and gown day. This is something that normally would happen as we do the graduation rehearsals, and it's still a very celebratory day. And we want to see if we can reproduce that for our senior students. And so the idea is, yes, that we have items that we need to collect from them, and they hopefully have items that they would like to get from us, such as cap and gowns, their student records, transcripts, and yearbooks. And so we're hoping that this can take place on Friday, May 29th. And what we would be looking to do is utilize the horseshoe in front of the school, have that lined with high school staff cars parked and decorated, celebrating our seniors along the route, have certain staged or structured areas where they're either students are handing off a Chromebook or other items that they may owe back. We would obviously staff each station with high school and ELPS staff. Obviously, one of the things that we talked about with our Department of Health was making sure that we're all wearing masks. Most likely we would also be needing gloves for our staff and so forth, but make that handoff and pick up a celebration basically all the way through, going from the horseshoe to the parking lot and probably exiting somewhere around where our athletic stadium is. Questions or thoughts around that?
I just had a quick question. So does that, I'm assuming then that means finals for seniors would be done by the May 29th date, just so that we weren't impacting their capacity to access content if they're
Right.
turning in their Chromebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if finals are scheduled up to the 29th, and Sophia, I don't know if they've released any kind of final schedule, have they?
No, I haven't seen one yet, but I've heard from some of my teachers, and it looks like that we'll be definitely be doing it then.
So right now, that's what they're looking at. Should that change as they continue to meet, obviously they could bump that out a week. But obviously we're looking to hopefully set up that first phase 1 of graduation somewhere around June 13th and 14th. Moving on then, senior awards night. So this will be a remote event, unfortunately. So we're working to put together the letters and the programs for all the students who would have been receiving an award or a scholarship, and sending that out.
Yeah.
And then do some type of filming and video recognition for all of our recipients that will be put together in the near future. Unfortunately, that's something that we haven't been able to come up with a way to do that live.
Yeah.
So
I
that's it.
I got the program in the mail today and the letter, and a few of my friends did as well. So I think those got out.
So Mrs. Hellier and Mr. Page and Mr. Wright are working on getting that out to the seniors. And actually during awards night, we have juniors and I believe in some cases sophomores that receive awards. So, you know, we would also be able to share that out remotely with those individuals. So at the moment, those are the events that we have planned and outlined. However, as I said, there is an active group that is not only the committee run by Mr. Page and Mr. Wright, but we also now have a group of senior parents who are helping out and brainstorming other ideas. I think most of you know that 2 weeks ago on Friday, May 1st, the high school staff had during the morning gone out to all the seniors' homes and placed a yard sign recognizing them as a senior, expressing you know, how much we love them and want to congratulate and celebrate their achievement. And I think that went really well and certainly was well received. And I know that in cases of where a sign may have been damaged, we're working to replace that sign. So we're trying to make sure that our seniors have those and can have that on their lawn, hopefully throughout this whole process.
So Gordon, once everything's finalized, you're going to bring that back to us and we'll approve that
Yes.
officially?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're hoping to do is finalize the phase 1 of graduation. I think the senior awards night more or less is finalized. The one question mark is really what that phase 2 in August might look like. But
Okay.
we'll put together phase 1 because now the clock's ticking on that one.
Right. Well, it sounds like we're making the best of the situation, and certainly wish it could be better for the seniors, but making the most of it for sure. So thank you for all that effort.
Absolutely.
And I agree with that. I mean, it is a trying time given everything that's happened, and nobody knows what, how it's going to look anytime soon.
Okay, any other discussion on that topic? No, we will move on then to 4.1.3. We have one certificate of attainment for approval.
So in your information packet, you should have a cover letter from Dr. Welsh, our Director of Student Support Services. I'm not going to, you have the initials of the student, but I'm not going to read those. So we do have someone who is scheduled to receive a certificate of attainment, has obviously met our graduation requirements up to this point. And if you flip through past the cover letter, you see sort of the criteria that we look for as we go through this process. And then the final page is where we've checked off certain things for graduation requirements, MCAS. In this case, it was a portfolio situation. And the final piece for a certificate of attainment after the principal and the Director of Student Support Services sign off is for the school committee to approve it.
Okay, so those signatures are all set?
Yes,
Okay.
you should have one in your shared folder that has Mr. Page's and Dr. Welsh's signatures on it.
Okay, great. I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of attainment for an individual student.
Okay, the motion has been made.
A second.
Seconded by Bill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we have a Birchland Park gift donation from the Blaze family for the Birchland Park Phys Ed department. Is this you, Pam?
That's right, but that's it. They had initially given the gift for field day, and then Tim went back to kind of have a conversation with them, and they now wanted to go towards the PE department. So we, with your approval, will put that into the Birchland Park gift account to be allocated for the PE department use next year.
Very nice. Okay, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Okay, move to approve the Birchland Park gift donation from the Blaze family for the Birchland Park Phys Ed department.
Okay, motion's made.
Second.
And second by Rich. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That also carries 5-0.
Great, we'll get that deposited.
Great. And thank you to the Blaze family for that. We have East Long Meadow Public School plans for refund credits for transportation, athletics, food service, and preschool.
Yeah, so in your packet, 4.2.2, due to the unanticipated pandemic here and the closure, we're left with some reimbursements that are owed to parents for both transportation fees and spring athletic fees. We have received some phone calls and assured parents that this was a conversation that we were going to have, and we were working on it behind the scenes. So what I just want to remind you all is that when it comes to transportation, student riders that are under 2 miles can pay a fee for transportation services, and that fee is $270 for 180 days of transportation. Therefore, it ends up being $1.50 per day. So the sheer fact that we are not in session for 60 days leaves a $90 credit for transportation riders. So the next one is athletic fee. We have $149 paid for the spring athletics, and of course, none of the kids could play the spring athletics. So I've worked with Becky Becker, our transportation coordinator, and Kevin McGee, our athletic director, and Lori Paul, our food services director, because what became very apparent is that although we owe reimbursement for transportation and spring athletics, school food service School food service has some negative outstanding balances. So we kind of did an analysis of all of the accounts together, and there ended up being 75 transportation students that owed outstanding balances for food service, and 23 athletic credits that owe money. And collectively, between those 100 students, it's about $5,500 that would go to the outstanding food service balance. So, you know, with your approval, we'd like to move forward with providing the families these balances in the accounts and apply the credits where needed. I've given you some sample communication. Lori Paul, our food service director, really took the bull by the horn here and went through all of the accounts, because it, you know, quite timely to do that. But she came up with a really nice letter here that would go to all of the families explaining what we did, and I think it's pretty clear. Then working with Becky Becker, our transportation coordinator, she too has created communication. We're still working on this, it's not totally finalized, but to communicate that back to families on what we would need to do for that $90 credit. I would also like to make mention, when it does come regarding the transportation, every year when we send out the registration forms for the families for transportation registration, there is a $90 fee that we need up front. And my expectation is still that we would collect that initial $90 fee, and any credit would go towards the balance. And then lastly, you'll see that Mr. McGee, athletic director, has done up an email here. He has everyone's emails, and he feels that that is the best way to communicate with his families. And he would, you know, explain about the credit going back to the, so we have two options here. What we would like to do is bring the credit forward into next year, if possible. Obviously, some families, for whatever reason, might be a senior graduating or whatever the reason may be, would need a refund or reimbursement check, and we would work with those families on a one-to-one basis. So that about sums it up on what I would like to see happen. And do you have any questions on any of it?
Pam, it refers to a reimbursement check if they'd like, if they're not planning on using it, whether they're a senior or if they're not going to be participating. How would they go about requesting that reimbursement check? Is that going to be included in the emails and the letters?
Yes, I think we would have to work with them, whether that be Becky for the transportation or Kevin for athletics. We do have a process, an internal process. Anytime we cut any kind of check, they're called a vendor, so we would have that paperwork attached for those families to be able to fill that out and complete it. So it would go through what we call our internal warrant process through the accounts payable. So it was a very transparent process with the appropriate, you know, documentation as backup.
And we utilize the warrant process. There are different times, not this many refunds, but athletics, obviously, we've refunded if a student decides not to play a given season. Transportation, we've made refunds throughout the year as well. So we've used the warrant process for that type of refund in this year and in previous years.
So the seniors will have to take no action, then will receive a refund without any action on their part?
That's correct, unless they had an outstanding school lunch balance that might have, yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So Ms. Blair, there'll be
Yep.
no reimbursements until the school lunch account is checked, correct?
That's correct. That was my goal. I mean, once we started to really do an analysis of this, it became very clear. You know, when it comes to transportation, the numbers get big. That's about $55,000 in credits. Athletics, that's about $20,000. Food service, currently it's $28,000 of outstanding balances. So yeah, I think this is a really great collaboration between all of us.
It is. Fantastic. Do we have to make a motion on this, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I believe we should. You want to give it a shot, Rich?
Sure, I'll make a motion that East Long Meadow Public Schools go forward in refunding credits for transportation, athletics, food service and preschool, as explained by our assistant superintendent.
Excellent. Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded by Bill. Further discussion? Pam, is this going to impact our budget next year? Are we going to have to, we'll have to work
We'll
on this?
definitely need to have some discussions. Yes, absolutely. And we're working on that behind the scenes now, and it's part of our discussion perhaps later.
Okay, we'll look at it again then.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. Thank you for all your work on that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we have an update on our budget development for FY 2021.
So this is really just a quick update. The fact that we are working with the town council and more currently working with the finance oversight committee. We're working collaboratively to look at our budget request and both help out the town, given this very unique situation that we're in, but also make sure that we're maintaining our programs and staffing that will be needed as we head into the fall. One of the things, though, that people should know is, I'm sure citizens have seen this, that the budget timelines have been relaxed, and so municipalities can utilize more than the usual timeline where we attempt to put a budget in place before the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. So there is the possibility, a very realistic possibility, that our budget development process will extend beyond June. And the guidance from the governor is that we appropriate 1/12 of a budget at that time for each month that we extend past. And so that's something I think the town is entertaining. And so it's something that we will have to work with them on because we have to make decisions probably prior to the end of the school year. But I think the last few meetings have been very positive, very collaborative. And so hopefully we will meet within the next few weeks with the town finance oversight committee and continue those discussions and have some direction that can work for all parties.
Okay, any other discussion, questions?
I just want, where are we in the CARES Act?
So that's a good question. So the CARES Act application now has been distributed from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So we received that late in the day on Friday. And so Mrs. Blair, Mrs. Brown, and I will be going through that application process to put in our application for the CARES Act grants that most likely would support, can support not only fiscal year 21, but can be utilized in fiscal year 22 as well. And so we'll be working through that application to receive those grants, hopefully for fiscal year 21, but it will set up, if I'm correct, Mrs. Blair, a revolving account that the money would be there and we could use it in both fiscal years, 21 and 22.
Right, it's a 27-month grant, and I believe, it's a 27-month grant, and we'll set up an account. You guys will have to approve it just like you do any new account. They're very similar to the ERA accounts. I don't know if everybody who remembers those, the ERA grants back in 2000, was that like 2008 maybe, 9?
Yeah, 2009 and 2010.
Yeah, so they're going to require quarterly reporting on it, and basically it follows the Title I funding formula, and regarding expenditures also. So anything that kind of Title I could be used for, I think we could also use it for these funds here. So this is a really good thing. Glad it came out.
Thank you.
And some more information that we will be waiting for is if there's another stimulus package from the federal government for states and municipalities.
We're hoping.
To fund education next year, because we're all in a unique situation. So hopefully that Ford stimulus package comes out soon and provides information so we can develop our budget a little bit further. Okay, any other discussion on this? Hearing none, we will move right on then. We have a discussion of extension of the Massachusetts School Building Authority eligibility period for the comprehensive high school project.
So this is another situation that's been impacted by COVID-19. We were invited into the Mass School Building Authority eligibility process. Our 270-day eligibility time frame was set to begin June 1st. In our discussions with all of you and our discussions with the town, we did feel it was wise to contact the MSBA and get their guidance as well in terms of how COVID-19 has impacted not only our district and town, but other districts that may be working with the MSBA. And so Mrs. Blair and I have had two very productive and positive conference calls with the Mass School Building Authority and our liaisons at the authority. And we were set to begin June 1st with an endpoint being around February 27th, 2021, just in the eligibility period. And that is a period where you work through 8 different requirements, one of which is establishing a building committee, signing the agreement that you will meet all the MSBA certification requirements is another, providing them more information on the educational programming in its current status and where it might go with a given comprehensive project. And then finally, the last big one is the town appropriating funding for a feasibility study that would really look at and begin to outline and do look at the engineering and architectural pieces and establish real cost to either a comprehensive renovation or a new building for the high school. And certainly with some uncertainty both at the state and the town as to when budgets are going to be finalized for FY21, this is something we wanted to discuss with our liaisons at the MSBA and just find out what's going on and what they might be doing with districts like us who are set to begin eligibility or districts who are actually in the building phase of a project and so forth. And so in our discussion, they did say that we are able to extend our start date from, say, a June 1st start date to a September 1 start date or an October 1 start date. And in discussing this with Mrs. Blair, we were thinking that the October 1 might make the most sense. That would mean that we would have to be finalized with the eligibility period by June 1st. And it would put our discussion about funding a feasibility study somewhere in the time frame of April, which would coincide in a regular budget development year with when we're deciding upon capital projects, when we're finalizing what the capital budget looks like and what the next fiscal year budget might look like. And so it sets up, it gives us certainly time to see what the state budget ultimately is going to finalize at and what the town budget, and gives us a look at or puts us in better position to have those discussions with the town. So our recommendation would be to take the MSBA up on their offer to extend it to start the eligibility period on October 1. And what they would need is approval from all of you, and then somewhat of a commitment by probably our town manager indicating that, yes, we would have that discussion in that April timeframe and be able to now finalize our 8 requirements by June 1st of 2021. 2020, yeah, 2021, sorry.
which would mean discussion by the council in May, right? Mid-May. Gordon, you said that they need
Probably late April, because we would like to get the vote to, or the appropriation to the MSBA in early May.
early May.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the date makes good sense. The October 1st date makes good sense.
Yeah, I think it's the best option we have. It's kind of a difficult time to be jumping into this, but it's our only shot. So if we can get a little more time and have a little more information, I think it's worthwhile. So does somebody want to make a motion to that effect for an October 1st start time and a June 1 submittal? Gordon, is that what it would be?
So we would, what they explained to us is that even though we have until June 1st, they really would like things, everything to be completed, say at least 2 weeks, if not 3 weeks prior to that end point, so that they can get it on a board meeting of their own, and stay in the timeframes that they've given each of the districts.
So if we just state our new start date, then the rest of the dates will fall in line automatically based on how they outline it.
Right, we would have to make sure that everything's out there by probably the second week of May.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
Let's see. I move to extend the MSBA eligibility period to beginning on October 1st, 2020.
Is that what we're looking for, Gordon? The eligibility period, or our start date for our submittal? How would
So
you?
it's the start date for the eligibility period. What we would ask them,
okay.
with your approval, is to move our start date from June 1st to October 1st.
Of the eligibility period?
I'll modify the motion.
A window.
Well, your motion might be good, Bill. Are we good with that motion then?
I think so.
Pam? Gordon? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, Bill. That's good. So
Okay.
I have a motion for an October 1st start date. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Antonella. Any further discussion?
I
Hearing
just
none,
would
all-
like
Oh, go ahead, Pam.
I just wanted to make mention for anyone who's out there, the public, just as a reminder here that we are hoping when it comes to this feasibility study, this is our eligibility period. And, we're hoping that next spring we would be able to use, FY22's free cash and possible bonding for this feasibility study. And just as a gentle reminder, MSBA projects, we do get reimbursement back. And our current accelerated repair project is at 55% reimbursement. So I just thought those were important facts to put out there as a reminder to the people listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. That's important information. Also, just to clarify a few other things, this is June 1st of 2021 we're talking. And then
Would be the end date.
would be the end date. And then if this all goes through, and we do have our feasibility study, then at some point we would look for a full town vote. There would be an opportunity for the town to weigh in on whether or not they would want to do a project or not. That would be a townwide vote and a chance for voters to chime in on a full project. So
Sure. The study gives the information that voters would need to make an educated decision on that.
perfect. So we have a motion. We have been seconded, and further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. Gordon will convey that information to Mary, town manager,
will.
and the town council, their dates.
Mhm.
Okay, and Pam. And then we'll notify MSBA of our dates as well.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a request again for the use of the ELHS parking lot, October 25th for Rays of Hope.
I make a motion to approve the use of the parking lot, East Lumber High School parking lot on October 25th, 2020, from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. by the Rays of Hope.
Okay, motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. Further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. And Gordon, you'll notify Mr. Westcott?
We will, yes.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, with thunder clapping in the background,
Yes.
we will move on to our next order of business, the National Night Out use of ELHS grounds on October 6th.
So this is a request that usually is for that first week in August. Unfortunately, given that the uncertain nature of what our summer months are going to look like, I think the National Night Out Committee has chosen to move it to Tuesday, October 6th.
Do you know what hours they were planning on?
Yeah, 'cause that's really tricky. We're schools in full session, practices, everything.
That's why I was that's one of the reasons I brought it up. There's nothing in the letter that says anything about the times.
So generally, it's a good point because the setup usually happens during the afternoon, and then the actual event goes anywhere from say 5 until 8 p.m. I don't know that we would have the daylight until 8 p.m. during the month of October, but certainly we would have the daylight to go like a 5 to 7.
Yeah, that my other point was it's going to get dark a lot earlier in October than it does in August. But my first point was if everything goes right, school will be in full session as well as athletics.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if there would be any crossover on that or not.
Certainly there would be some crossover, at least with practices. It'd also be crossover with our rec sports because they use the fields after high school sports have finished their day. So we would have to clear this both with Mr. McGee and the rec department just to make sure that they're all aware that on Tuesday, October 6th, should you approve this, that we would need to not have late practices and be done by, probably 4:30, 4 o'clock.
Because in the past, they have used a good part of the parking lot for a couple of demonstrations and a car show as well.
Right.
So they use, it's not just that little carved out area between the stadium and the tennis courts. It involves a lot more. So I think I have no problem with approving this, but I think there's a lot of coordination this year just because of the fact that it's moved out by 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes the rain.
Loud.
Yes. All right. Move to approve the National Night Out use of the ELHS grounds and parking lot on October 6, 2020.
Okay, motion's been made
Second,
and seconded by Antonella. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. And we have our last piece of business. Bill, you had some information on this?
Yes, I do. Even though I'm not on the MASC Board of Directors anymore, I did reach out. When I saw the agenda, I did reach out to Glenn Kuchar, Executive Director of MASC, to get his thoughts on a conference this year. And at this point, given everything that's going on, they can't fully guarantee that there will be a full conference in November. My recommendation, since the deadline for notifying MASC of a delegate for the delegate assembly is not until October 16th of this year, I think it would be wise for us to table this item until we get more guidance from MASC to see if, in fact, there is going to be a conference or if there is going to be a delegate assembly and how they're going to handle that.
Okay. With that piece of information, then I'll entertain a motion to table.
I make a motion to table the, I had lost it. Make a motion to table the MASC delegate to the conference in November.
Perfect. Motion's been made.
Second?
Seconded by Antonella. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. We'll table that for further discussion another time. Okay, with that, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Actually, the committee's going to go into executive session from here. Ryan, we're going to jump on to another link, so we'll let you go for the night. Thank you for your help.
You'll need a motion, though, to go into executive session.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
All right.
And then only to return to adjourn.
Right.
Go ahead, Bill.
I move that the committee go
Hold on.
into executive session and to return to open session only to adjourn.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Second by Antonella. You all right, Sarah? You need something?
No, I just have to go outside for a second.
Too loud?
It's raining.
Harry outside.
No. Something must be going on.
Okay. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. Thank you all. Committee will see you in executive. Thank you. Good night.
Take care.
Thanks,
Thank
Ryan.
you.